I will make sure the recording is available in the virtual foyer that you just came into. So thanks for joining us. I'm here with a couple of my colleagues from Stova, and we're going to go through some end of year wrap-up considerations for you in the platform, keeping things neat and tidy. I do like cleaning. So if you have a question throughout this event here today with us, please just pop it into the Q&A channel and my colleagues will help me monitor those questions coming in. And my name is Madeleine, and what I want to cover today is archiving, changing our statuses of all of the different features that you can do that on the account, moving your events around, creating those folders that you can archive things, and just reminding you of where you can deactivate things because it does help with management of your platform and takes the strain off your eyeballs, which I like to do. And a couple of other things I want you to consider is to go back and have a look at your events and see how you can clean up and adjust those templates. And there's a few areas that I want to show you that I'm really picky on that absolutely help me as I'm managing my templates down the road. So I'm going to touch base on some of these little areas as well. And finally, I'm going to give you some best practices and tips for cleaning up that image database. I know you're all guilty of it. Your image database probably looks like my teenager's bedroom. It's probably a complete mess. And I want to just go through quick ways to clean that up. And I've got some resources for you, a debriefing manual guide, an administrator guide, ways to kind of clean up your account. So I want to show you what I have for you and I'll push them out in the email. And I'll also put them in that foyer of the virtual event that you just came in. So there's lots of good things that I want to show you that I use when I'm cleaning up my account. So I'm going to share my different screen. I've stopped sharing my PowerPoint, so give me a moment to bring up my new screen share. Now, can you just confirm for me that you can see our training account in the Stova platform? Let me just see if I can get a little thumbs up there or
Yeah.
acknowledgement that I'm on the right screen. Great, thanks a million. All right, so first thing I want to show you is you should all be part of the learning management platform. You should have a login to this got this whole system. And if you don't, please email training@stova.io. And what I'm going to cover for you here is some areas that I've covered under short overviews of each module, and then also under the quick tricks area. There's a few of what I'm covering today in this platform. So please make sure you have a login to this LMS platform. It's complimentary for all of our clients, and please make sure you use that. The second thing that I want to bring your attention to is we do have a YouTube channel, and I'm not quite sure if people know about this or not, but we have a YouTube channel with various playlists covering product demos. And what I'm also trying to put on here is my Wee Hamburger series. I've got the new Stova mobile on here. I've got the Stove Intelligence tool. So if you have colleagues in your team who maybe don't have access to that LMS, or you just want to share the story of Stova, I'm trying to beef up our presence on the YouTube channel to make it more accessible to all of you. So please go in there and subscribe. And if you've got recommendations for what you think we should be popping up there, I'd be happy to hear those recommendations. So let me go ahead and start covering a couple of little things that I like to do with cleaning up. And as you know, you absolutely can come into your events, open up that event, heading into the settings, and change those statuses when you want to. And an event will automatically close if it hits that close date. But when I'm looking at my list of events, so if I go head out to my list of events, I can also turn off the display so that my list of events here does not include those cancelled, closed, or archives. So this can reduce what I'm seeing here on my screen. And the second thing is you can also change the columns of what's displaying on here. So I've added some columns here, the total number of lines of registration record, which is different than the total number of confirmed attendees. So a quick little eyeball here, I can change the columns and reduce what I'm seeing and maybe make that information a little bit more helpful to me. Now, inside my event, when an event is finished, and I'm going to show you, this is the Ask the Trainer webinar series that you are currently logged into and registered in. As I push out these emails, I come into all of these custom emails and I rename them archived. So I have used those emails, but I just go ahead and rename them so there's no danger of me sending them out again. So I take the time to go into my events, wrapping up those emails. And I also put into my headers and footers, I also make sure that I use copious internal notes on all of my headers and footers and emails. And just remind myself, this is the thank you message on the registration record page. I might archive it. I might not want to use it in my future events, and I could clone these headers and footers for offering me some options down the road to change things up in my template. So I am going to come into my events, look at what I used, rename any of those emails that I used, put in copious notes in my miscellaneous sections of my headers and footers and emails, just to trigger like what really worked in my event, what could I clean up, what could I improve for next time. So when you look at your old events and you're closing things out, if you've got colleagues on your team that also manage other events, maybe you could go back to them and confer and say, like, what emails did we use? What did you find was helpful? Did you have any people who were registering saying to you, I couldn't find that information? Or did we have a lot of incompletes during that registration? Was our form healthy? That's what incompletes would tell me whether or not that form is healthy. So I'm really going to take the time to have a look right inside my event and rename things at the end of the year. If I head over to my wee hamburger and come down to my websites, for example, in each of those websites that I'm not using anymore, we've done the SpongeBob conference, I just don't need it anymore. I can come into this website at the end of the year. This is actually quite a nice website. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to inactivate that website. And when I click on save and exit, let me just delete this. When I click on save and exit, this website is now going to be listed as inactivated, but I can also filter my folder here so that I'm only showing my active websites. Now, this means that that URL is now no longer available for that Star Wars. So if somebody was to click on that URL, I could, it would not render for them. Under my widgets, if you're using the widgets as well, if I head in here, I can unpublish or deactivate these widgets as well. And these are the tools that if you weren't using the Stover website, you could grab the code from this widget and you can embed this widget on a different website entirely. It iframes this little widget into those other sites. So you can come in here and clean all of those up. In the marketing mailing list, if you're using our marketing tool to invite people to RSVP to your event, I guarantee you there's a lot of you on this call now today that are guilty of this. I want you to remember to come into that mailing list and to make it inactive. This is probably one of the biggest things I see on clients' accounts is they haven't inactivated old mailing lists. And this is really important, not just from the risk of potentially emailing the wrong mailing list, but when you go into one of your RSVP emails, and if I was to open this invite in here, when I click on send email, all of that ginormous list of ancient old mailing lists is going to display here. So you can see that this little list is going to be shorter because it's not going to display those inactive mailing lists. So that's definitely helpful when I'm trying to manage future blasts, just making things a little bit easier. If I head down to the survey tool, if you're using this survey tool, you can head into your surveys and you can push this survey back to testing mode or archive mode. And in any of my modules, if your folder structure is getting kind of crazy and busy and you've got a busy folder structure on here, I definitely like to create a folder structure called archived, and I can move folders right into that folder. So I'm completely whittling down the list of folders in any of my modules. And then of course I can click and drag and drop folders, surveys one at a time or events one at a time into that archived folder. So just keep an eye on your folder structure, keep an eye on where you can deactivate things and take a moment to clean up the site before the end of the year. Now I'm going to come into my databases and templates section under account settings. And if I head into databases and templates, you have a documents folder and you have your images database, which is probably getting pretty messy. And in here, these images, I have no way of telling if this image is sitting out on a registration site or sitting out on a website. So this could be in use somewhere. So if I was to delete this image, I would now potentially have an error on that website or on that registration site. But I can see here that somebody uploaded 2 images. Now, in my event, if you do go to upload an image and you click on that upload button more than once, let me just head back into an event. Let me just go back into an event here. So if I'm in here in an event and I'm working in an HTML window and I have to upload an image right here. So if I go into image and I browse my server and I don't see the one that I want, so I click on upload image. If you click on this button twice, it is going to upload 2 images. So click once and hands off. And that's why we sometimes get these duplicate images and you're not really sure. So I can come into this image and I can move it into a different folder. And its URL, its anchored URL, is going to remain the same. So you can actually tidy and clean up this folder by moving things around without risking causing that error on your website or your registration site or anywhere that that image is embedded. So I would ask you to take a moment to clean this up. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do, and I've got a best practice document here that I'll send you, is, make sure your folder structure is correct. Don't click on that twice, but fix your naming conventions. I have to say this is probably the biggest issue I see. Some of you are fabulous at keeping your images database not messy, but I rarely see consistent naming conventions. So if it's speaker's image, call it a speaker's image. If it's a hotel image, call it hotel underscore, etc. So just pay attention to your naming conventions, because when I go to upload an image here and I go to browse the server, if I knew that all of the speaker's images began with the word speaker, my search result here would be a lot more helpful to me to whittling it down and finding that speaker image. So I'm a bit of an A-type personality, as I think a lot of planners are, but I like to keep that clean and just maybe impress upon you all about how tricky it can be to clean this up if we don't keep consistent naming conventions. Your couple of other things you can deactivate. If you're using HTML snippets, and I really hope you are, they are so helpful. This, for example, is a great example of a snippet right here, that privacy policy, that cookie policy, my copyright symbol. If you can see, I'm pointing down here on the right-hand side. These little snippets are embedded as merge fields at the bottom of emails, at the bottom of registration sites or websites. You can come in here and deactivate these snippets. So the 2024 content is not available anymore. I want everyone to use the 2025 snippet. So you can deactivate these, put in your social media footers inside these snippets and make it available for all of your planners. So you can deactivate those. You have a centralized library of themes. This is a theme that is available inside all of your registration sites. You can give it a title and allow your planners inside your registration site, if they pop over to the theme editor, instead of them having to fuss around with trying to figure out every little nook and cranny and how it's supposed to be designed, they can grab that centrally located theme, so they don't have to worry about that look and feel. So this centralized library of themes, if you're finished with one, you could make it inactive. That's our 2024, 2025 theme. We want to put that to bed. We don't use it anymore. So keep in mind if you are using that centralized theme, and I hope you are, I think it's actually quite a helpful one to pop in here and maybe put those to bed. With your library of sessions in here, I would like you to go through your events and see, is there sessions that you repeatedly use over and over again across all of your events? Maybe you've got a walk-in registration session, a welcome plenary session. You could add it to the centralized library of sessions, and now these sessions are available to quickly plug in to the session section of your event. You don't have to retype all of that mumbo jumbo associated with that session. So if I go to add session, I'm going to pull it from my database, my centralized database. So the Irish breakfast is one that I hope we're all doing at all of our events. So I'm going to bring that one in there. So if you are using the centralized database of sessions at your account level, maybe clean that up. Maybe consider cleaning up your tracks. Those are the subject areas of your events. And the last couple of areas that I want to point out that I want to clean up is in my module settings under registration, all the way down at the bottom. For those of you that are creating your badges inside each of your event, do consider adding that badge right here at the account level side. You would have to recreate it, but now if it's at the account level, it's available in all of your events. So centralizing that, but if you are using it, clean up this badge section and just see if other people can apply it to that type of event down the road so they don't have to recreate it from scratch. A couple of more things I want to point out to you. When I clone my event, so I've wrapped up my events this year. The new year hasn't started yet, so I know in January we'll all have our pants on fire getting ready for the next set of events after the holidays. But before you clone your event to use again, how are you templatizing this event? So maybe I want to run this event next year, no problem. I could just clone this event and everything clones, including those views and filters that you have inside any of your reports. So if you've been working diligently in your registrant list for this event, any views and filters are going to clone, and any of those fabulous custom reports are also going to clone. So you're probably in the habit of cloning the same event over and over, but if you have a centralized library of templates, maybe you are the type of organization that has a master template on steroids. It's got everything in it, all the reports, all the views and filters set up. Just consider remembering to come back into that and continuing to polish it, adding those custom reports, adding those custom emails, adding those views and filters. And maybe for my master template, I clone it and I build working templates. So I might have a simple registration site where I don't need all those emails and I don't need all those custom reports. You could whittle it down and polish that working template. So however you templatize your events at the end of the year, don't forget to go back and polish the master template if you as a team have decided we really want to add a couple of more bits and pieces in there. A couple of things I want to show you as far as resources. If I was going through a debriefing of an event, this is the document that I use. Let me just get to the start of this document. If we're looking at our events all year long, how did they go? What do we need to plan for next year? How are we going to change things up for next year? You may want to review the purpose of the event, the mission statement. How did we make this event publicly known internally and externally? And are our competitors also running similar types of events? And when I talk about competitors, I do want to understand my peers and my aspirant competitors. How are we managing the length and the structure of the event? And how did we prioritize the sessions offered? And how was that prioritization received by my attendees? When we look at our communications, what kind of external communications? Was it a public event? Was it on a website? Did we have good emergency communications and backup redundancies in place for it? So did any of my colleagues leave during the planning of the event, and should I have had some backup set up in there? Did we use contractors And were they all helpful, and did it all work out with my communications with them? Reviewing my processes, what worked, what didn't work. Did we lose any staff members before, during, or after this event? Did we have some layoffs, or did people leave after the event? How did we manage our on-site team for that event? With the attendee focus, how did our attendees manage with the front-end experience, with the registration site, how many incompletes, with the mobile app, if I used that, and with that surveys, what kind of feedback did we get from the customers or our attendees at that event? How did they do with checking in and badging? How did my exhibitors do if I had them? And did we honor our compliances? Are there any regulatory bodies that I am honor bound to pay attention to? And did we do that okay? Did we have to issue certifications, letters of attendance, certification of attendance, and how did that work? How were our finances for the event? So this is a long list of 12 different areas that I typically like to bring into a debrief. And some of these areas I might not need to work on, but should we work on and evaluate some of those areas, you might want to create that RACI chart, which helps you. I'm going to assign this area to be reviewed by somebody in my team. They have to be accountable to the team as a whole, but they should consult and inform all of us about their findings within a certain time frame. So I'll send you this event debrief guide, and this helps me when I'm, wrapping up an event, just to reflect a little bit better on what we could do better for next year. And one of the things I want you to consider is, if I was working with you to set up your account, for example, in Stova, I'd be asking you, well, how do you want the folders set up? Who has to have access to Stova? How are you going to organize your sessions? How are you going to organize your documents and databases and image folders? So this is the type of document here that I go through with you on a health check. How is the account working for you? Because Stova should evolve with you every year. Every time you run events, we want to reflect and improve. And the reason I say that is there's several ways to do things in Stova. So that could be a frustrating point for you, or it could be a blessing to some of you. For example, I may set up group bookings where the categories are different for different formations of groups. And I can have 5 different ways to set up group bookings in Stova. So Stova is built with that flexibility so that we can be able to accommodate different variations of your events on site. And that's the humanity of event planning. Event planning is nuts, it's crazy. And we have outliers all the time. So there is 5 different ways to set up group bookings. If you were to run a series of events, instead of creating dozens and dozens of individual events, I could create different categories for those different events. So I'm going to be running this event in New York and in Boston and in Chicago. So I'm going to add the categories, and all the way down at the bottom, I'm going to tell the platform that this category is actually a mini little event all by itself, with its own image, with its own date and time and location. And this is a way to set up a series of events. So we have a built-in feature of managing a series of events instead of setting up individual events, or instead of setting up lots of different sessions to cover those series. If you set up this way of handling series of events, now in a confirmation email, I'm going to tell people in the belly of the email, I'm going to tell folks, if I go to merge fields, you see this little section, here is your category date and time when the category has been set up as an event in its own right. Here's the category end time, here's the category location. So I'm pointing this feature out to you about series just to take a moment to think. There is a few different ways to do things in Stova, and just see if there's alternate ways of managing it. And if you were on the fence about whether to change your approach or not, there's a few things that I would consider. I'm allergic to mouse mileage. I'd like to click way less if I ever could in a day. So, what are my repeated tasks? What tasks take me the longest? What is the most stressful for me? And what I find very stressful as a planner is if I make a mistake publicly, I've got the wrong information in an email. And one of the ways that I avoid that is by making sure my entire event is built with as many merge fields as possible. So if I am to clone this event, I don't have to check every nook and cranny. So there's little things like that that would guide me on changing up my process. So what's stressful, what's repetitive, what takes me the longest to do. So based on all of that, is there some things that you could change about managing your events in the next year? Is there some things that you could change the approach of? So I'm going to send you these few documents, the best practice guide for images, uploading those images and keeping that database super clean and squeaky clean. The next document is that admin to-do list. If I was talking you through a health check, I'd be ticking off all of those areas. What can we clean up? What can we use? And then the third guide is that debrief guide. And those are the 12 different areas that you might want to look at the end of the year about your events. So, and then inactivating those pieces of the platform that you can just put to sleep, which will help your eyeballs and not be looking at everything. And then also just help speed up that whole part, just the speed up in general, the usage in your account. So those are the things I wanted to consider as we close out this year. I know I've had my colleagues here looking at questions and answering a few of your questions in here, so that's great. Thank you very much for your help on that. And I don't see any further questions that I need to address. So in the last minute here, if you have anything to pop into the Q&A, let me know. But please take advantage of that learning platform, take advantage of our YouTube channel. And what we're planning on starting with in January is I'm going to have a look at the Stova dashboard and intelligence tool. So I have one of our January session is the third week in January, and I've popped on there the dashboard intelligence suite to show you a little bit more about that. So we came out with that new product earlier this year. I've been learning it all year with a lot of different clients, how they use it, etc. So yep, I'll be able to work on that. So I do have a question in here. I'll just dig in and answer. So there is with the old mailing lists, the question is there any way to delete them? And there's not, because that's a federally mandated law. You can't delete a mailing list that has been blasted to, but you can inactivate it. And the same way you cannot delete a user, an invitee from a mailing list because they already received that blast. So we do have to maintain the history of that blast, but you can unsubscribe that user from that mailing list. So those are actually federally mandated regulations regarding mailing lists and mailing blasts. I'm going to send a wrap-up email from today's session, and I'll pop in there the link for the training Stova LMS, the learning platform, and I'll also pop in there the link to our Stova Tech YouTube channel. So if you go to your YouTube and you just pop in there Stova, it'll come right up for you. So please take advantage of that. And if there's anything else you want me to cover or pop in that channel or any ideas for this, we'd be happy to put it out there for you. So thanks a million for joining us. I hope you have a fabulous holidays, however you celebrate, and we'll all be back and fresh in the new year. Thank you.